Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Ingalls Shipbuilding and to the christening ceremony for Tripoli LHA 7. We thank you for spending your Saturday morning with us today. Before we begin our ceremony, I ask that our guests please silence all electronic devices for the duration of the ceremony. Personal photography is welcome, but please be courteous to those around you. During the national anthem, persons not in uniform should stand facing the flag with their right hand over their heart. All veterans are authorized to render the hand salute. Your safety and security is important to us this morning, and medical personnel are available on site throughout the crowd should you require assistance. Now, will the guests please rise as the official party takes their place on the platform? Command Master Chief Robin Pierce, United States Navy, Prospective Command Master Chief, LHA 7. Captain Brian Lawrence, United States Navy, Supervisor of Shipbuilding, Gulf Coast. Mr. Tom Rivers, United States Navy Amphibious Warfare Program Manager. Mrs. Elizabeth Goodwin, Matron of Honor and sister of LHA 7 sponsor. Lieutenant Commander Aaron Miller, United States Navy, Command Chaplain, Naval Construction Battalion Center, Gulfport. Captain Kevin Myers, United States Navy, Prospective Commanding Officer, LHA 7. Rear Admiral William Galinas, United States Navy, Program Executive Officer, Ships. Major General David Kaufman, United States Marine Corps, Director, Expeditionary Warfare. Vice Admiral Ted Carter, United States Navy, 62nd Superintendent of the United States Naval Academy. Our principal speaker for today's christening, Mr. Thomas D., performing the duties of the Undersecretary of the Navy. The Honorable Stephen Palazzo, United States Representative, 4th Congressional District, Mississippi. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our ship's sponsor, Mrs. Lynn Mabus, escorted today by Mr. Brian Cusius, President, Ingalls Shipbuilding, and Executive Vice President, Huntington Ingalls Industries. The 41st Army Band will now render honors to Congressman Palazzo. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing for the presentation of colors by the Gulfport High School Marine Corps Junior ROTC and our national anthem by the 41st Army Band. Pledge of Allegiance this morning will be led by Mr. Paul Moaning, an electrical foreman here at Ingalls, followed by the invocation by Lieutenant Commander Miller.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I invite you to pray with me. Gracious God, we gather here today on this beautiful morning. We'd like to thank you for your presence and the gifts that you've given to us. Lord, we ask now that you look upon us and that you bless us. As we see this amazing work of American strength and wisdom, Lord, may your blessings go with us now, so as this ship becomes a reality, part of our fleet, part of our nation, that everywhere she would go, she will represent the best that we are. That she will take with her all American pride and wisdom and integrity. Bless those who will serve upon her. Give those who lead her wisdom and strength and care for those who they take care of. Bless each and every person who will serve aboard her or ride in her. Guide them, that they might be the very hand that represents this country. And may it remind us all that we are your people, that we stand together as brothers and sisters for this country, and may it make us better people. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. There are many special guests in our audience today, and I ask that you please stand when I call you out. First, we welcome all of our elected officials from across Mississippi and the local area today. Would all state and local officials please stand? The Honorable Ray Mabus, 75th Secretary of the Navy and 60th Governor of the state of Mississippi. Secretary and Mrs. Mabus are joined today by many family members and friends from throughout the state of Mississippi and across the nation, including our sponsor's mother, Ms. Dorothy Harecki. Please help me welcome them all. We welcome all of our partners and customers from the Navy's Office of the Supervisor of Shipbuilding Gulf Coast. Please help me welcome the crew of Tripoli LHA 7. Rear Admiral John Ocon, United States Navy, EA to Deputy CNO, Information Warfare. Rear Admiral Louis Tripoli, United States Navy, retired, Deputy Commander, Navy Medicine East. Mrs. Tracy Frost, Director, Department of Defense Manufacturing Institutes, and Acting Director, Department of Defense Mantech, and her husband Patrick. The President of the Society of Sponsors, Mrs. Linda Winter. Leaders of our shipyard unions are with us throughout the crowd this morning. Would you please stand? Thank you all for honoring us with your presence. And now, please join me in welcoming our host for today's christening ceremony, Mr. Brian Cusius, President, Ingalls Shipbuilding, Executive Vice President, Huntington Ingalls Industries.
Well, thank you, Jim. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of all the Ingalls shipbuilders, welcome to the christening of the amphibious assault ship Tripoli, LHA 7. Mrs. Mavis, Secretary Mavis, Congressman Palazzo, Mr. D, Vice Admiral Carter, Major General Kaufman, Rear Admiral Galinas, distinguished platform guests, my fellow shipbuilders, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to you all. We have a special group of veterans with us today I'd also like to recognize. The Armed Forces Retirement Home in Gulfport is home to 500 men and women representing all service branches. These residents have served in World War II, the Vietnam War, the Korean War, and are recipients of the Bronze Star, Silver Star, Lone Sailor Award, and the Congressional Medal of Honor. The average age of these residents is 82 years young. Ladies and gentlemen, for the Armed Forces Retirement Home, would you please stand or give us a wave so we can thank you for your service? I really want to know how they still fit in their uniforms. Well, we're equally honored to have Mrs. Lynn Mavis, a Mississippian, with us today, serving as our ship sponsor. Lynn is no stranger to Pascagoula, as she often visited as a child to visit her grandparents, who I understood also worked at Ingalls. As her grandparents were, Lynn is also passionate about serving others. A trained Trauma 1 nurse, she has volunteered for the Wounded Warriors at Walter Reed Medical Center and the Red Cross. Mrs. Mavis was a frequent companion with her husband as his tenure as SecNav, and made a point to visit Navy and Marine Corps families around the globe. A compassionate advocate for our military indeed. I know as a ship sponsor, she'll be an advocate for this ship and the crew for years to come. LHA 7 is the third Navy ship to bear the name Tripoli. The second Tripoli, LPH-10, was an Iwo Jima amphibious assault ship class built here in Ingalls in the 60s. With us today are former crew members of that Tripoli. Would those crew members please stand and let us say thank you for your service? LHAs are the most complex, survivable, conventionally powered Navy warships that are built in the world. They're truly a floating city that moves, defends, and protects our nation and can return home safely with our sailors and Marines. When she's finished, Tripoli will weigh 45,000 tons, will be 844 feet long, with almost 1,000 miles of cable. So that's cable from Pascagoula, Mississippi, to Washington, D.C. Hundreds of thousands of feet of pipe, thousands of signals. As a matter of fact, LHA 7's hospital medical facilities are significant, with over 600 berths. As we stand here today, 3 of her sister large deck amphibious ships are supporting relief efforts off the coast of Texas and Florida after those devastating storms. You see, Tripoli is not only a warship built for our servicemen and women, she's also built for humanity. This will be a magnificent ship. We've been building large deck amphibious assault ships at Ingalls for nearly a half a century. At Ingalls, we build ships with one goal in mind: to protect the brave men and women who protect our freedom. We look closely with our Navy partner, and we continue to improve on each ship we build. The Tripoli will be no exception. Today, we're investing hundreds of millions of dollars modernizing our facilities, along with our partners from the leadership of the great state of Mississippi, of Jackson County, and the city of Pascagoula. Combine that with a hot production line and our talented and experienced shipbuilders, and we're uniquely positioned to provide our country with the highest quality, most capable amphibious assault ships in the fleet. Simply stated, Ingalls builds the finest warships the world has ever known right here in Pascagoula, Mississippi. Our American-class program has an outstanding team of professionals, great American patriots, like Arlen Richard, who in 1978 was working as a plumber with his grandfather when he was accepted at Ingalls as a pipe fitter apprentice. Early in his career, Arlen was assigned to work on the LHD-1 Wasp that was christened in 1987. He's worked on every large deck since, and now he is a pipe superintendent overseeing the pipe work on Tripoli. And Pete Serra, who's been employed for Ingalls for 5 years. He was a 2016 graduate of the apprenticeship program and was the Sheet Metal Apprentice of the Year. Just last month, Pete was promoted to a production control planner from a sheet metal mechanic. Pete and his family came here to the United States from Sicily. Pete says, "I love this country, and I look forward to building these ships as a way to help our military. Building these ships with quality will help them protect all that we have here. I look at it as a way of serving." These are just some of the LHA shipbuilders, true patriots, driven to produce the best ships possible for our Navy's customers and for our nation. They know what they do every day truly matters for our nation. I would ask that the shipbuilders I named and all the shipbuilders involved in building and support building LHA 7, would you please stand and be recognized? In closing, I'd like to thank you again for being here for this historic event. May God bless the officers and the crew of Tripoli, and may God bless America. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Please welcome the Honorable Stephen Palazzo, United States Representative, 4th Congressional District, Mississippi.
Well, thank you, Jim. Good morning. It's hot, it's humid. It's a typical South Mississippi day in September. What makes this day so special is a ship christening and SEC football. Which reminds me, LSU state game starts at 6, so I will be keeping my remarks very brief. Mrs. Mavis, Secretary Mavis, Admiral Carter, Admiral Glennis, General Kaufman, Mr. D, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, and on behalf of the men and women of South Mississippi, welcome. I can't think of a more fitting day to commission such a beautiful new ship for the men and women of the United States Marine Corps and the U.S. Navy. I have said it before and I will say it again. Ships like these prove that the shipbuilders of the Gulf Coast, specifically right here at Ingalls Shipyard in Mississippi, are the most skilled craftsmen in our nation, if not the world. Outside of those who have served our great nation in the military, these shipbuilders are also some of the most patriotic Americans I have ever seen. Now, I have the distinct honor of serving on the House Appropriations Committee. Every discretionary dollar spent goes through my committee. And my number one priority is the defense of America and our allies, and ensuring the men and women of the Navy and Marine Corps have the tools they need to get the job done. We make a lot of tough decisions with American tax dollars, but to see these ships come to life and the crew that will man them makes a very clear statement about why they are so important and why we need more of them, not less. Just this past week, the full House passed my committee's Make America Secure and Prosperous Appropriations Act. The bill included $21.5 billion to procure 11 Navy ships, including funding for 1 carrier, another LHA, 2 DDG-51 guided missile destroyers, 2 Virginia-class submarines, and 3 LCSs. And the great news is right here in Mississippi, we will build the next LHA and then at least 1 DDG-51 guided missile destroyer right here in South Mississippi. Now, Mrs. Mavis, I believe your husband saved one of the best ship sponsorships just for you. The name alone, Tripoli, invokes great pride in every Marine because it represents our core values of honor, courage, and commitment. Exactly the values displayed by our U.S. Marines in 1805 as they marched over 500 miles from Egypt to Tripoli, where they performed heroically in achieving a major American victory over the Barbary pirates. So it's no surprise to this proud Marine that a ship would be named Tripoli. In fact, I even named my dog Tripoli, but I call him Trip for short. Thank you all for being here today. God bless America, and God bless the United States Navy and the U.S. Marine Corps. Semper Fidelis, and thank you.
Thank you, Congressman. Now let us welcome Rear Admiral William Galinas, United States Navy, Program Executive Officer, Ships.
Secretary Mrs. Mavis, Congressman Palazzo, Secretary D, Admiral Carter, fellow flag and general officers, Captain Myers, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'd also like to add to Brian's welcome for the shipmates and friends from the Armed Forces Retirement Home from Gulfport, as well as the crew members from the previous Tripoli, LPH-10. It's really great to have you here, and again, thank you for your service. Before I start, I'd like to pause for a moment to just remember. It was 4 years ago today that 12 talented members of the Navy team, friends, shipmates, and co-workers lost their lives during the tragic shooting in the Washington Navy Yard at our headquarters at Naval Sea Systems Command. I'd like to specifically recognize two of those individuals whose contributions have been absolutely critical to the success that we celebrate today. Mike Arnold served for many years as the leaders of the LHA program office, and in many ways inspired the design for the America-class ships. His passions for shipbuilding and airplanes made him uniquely suited to transform amphibious assault ships to fully accommodate the MV-22s and the new Joint Strike Fighters. Michael's concept that he literally drew on the back of a napkin set the stage for the ship that you see here before you. Marty Bodrog was also a member of the PEO ship's family. He served as a Requirements Action Officer on the Chief of Naval Operations Staff, where he played a key role in the development of the requirements for this ship. Michael and Marty, their extraordinary legacy of service shines brightly in the unparalleled strength and capability of the amphibious fleet that we have at sea today, and in the lives of the countless shipmates throughout the acquisition community who have been inspired by their example. We are so honored to have Michael's wife, Yolanda, and their sons, Chris and Eric, with us today. Please help me in welcoming them to this terrific ceremony. And I would be remiss if I did not express my heartfelt thanks to Secretary Mavis for his personal support, his compassion, and, sir, most importantly, your leadership to our organization during that difficult time. Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. Today, we christen our newest and most advanced amphibious assault ship, the Tripoli, the second America-class ship built for the United States Navy and the Marine Corps, and the 15th large-deck amphib built by this great shipyard in Pascagoula. And to our ship sponsor, Mrs. Lynn Mavis. Lynn, today is your day. Thank you for your lifetime of selfless service, a life of service that continues here today, where within just a few short minutes, and I have no doubt in no uncertain terms you will christen this great ship and instill within her your indomitable and gracious spirit to form a lasting bond with the ship and her crew that will guide and inspire her over calm waters and rough seas throughout her service life. Lynn, you will christen a ship that is very different from the previous amphibs that we've heard about this morning. This aviation-centric ship is designed and built from the keel up to integrate and maximize the full combat capability of the Marine Corps future aviation combat element with enhanced aviation capability to accommodate our newest strike aircraft, the Joint Strike Fighter, and better support the MV-22s that are being flown by the Marine Corps today. A reconfigurable and the most up-to-date command and control suite guarantee that the Navy and the Marine Corps team will have the most capable command and control and warfare systems at sea on amphibious ships today. The addition of the electric propulsion plant used at slower speeds provides for improved fuel economy, saving literally hundreds of millions of dollars in life cycle cost savings and in maintenance. And these are just a few of the significant capability improvements in Tripoli. But Lynn, most importantly, you have a phenomenal Navy and industry team working tirelessly to build this ship. And I am proud to recognize this team and thank them today for the work that they do. I'd like to acknowledge a few folks from our Navy Program Office, led by our LHA Program Manager, Mr. Tom Rivers, and his ship construction team, led by his production officer, Commander Mike Smith, and his LHA Technical Director, Hal Lamb. Hal worked side by side with Mike Arnold during the initial design phase of this ship, now in construction. The Navy's team working with the shipbuilder here on the waterfront is led by Captain Brian Lawrence, the supervisor of shipbuilding, and his LH team led by Commander Randy Slaff and Fred Hoffmeyer, with team members Dennis Penn, Linda Cowart, and Bruce Leach, and our outstanding industry partners here at Ingalls, under the focused leadership of Brian Cushas and his LH team, led by Primo Sabatini and Randy Padgett. And folks, these are just a few of the many, many tremendous people that set stellar examples that have become the exemplary performance that is standard in Navy shipbuilding here on the Gulf Coast. In closing, we look forward to the christening of the ship today, and we look forward to taking Tripoli to sea next year, and soon after delivering her to our unbeatable Navy and Marine Corps team. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you, Admiral. Please welcome Major General David Kaufman, United States Marine Corps, Director, Expeditionary Warfare.
From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, we fight our country's battles in the air, on land, and sea. Here in Pascagoula at Ingalls Shipbuilding some 53 years ago, construction began on USS Tripoli LPH-10, as Brian mentioned. That ship was the second vessel named for the decisive victory of a detachment of United States Marines led by First Lieutenant Presley O'Bannon during the First Barbary War, a battle recognized as the first time that the flag of the United States was raised in victory on foreign soil, thereby writing an early chapter in expeditionary warfare for the young American Republic and her Navy Marine team. During her time, LPH-10 Tripoli participated in expeditionary operations across the globe as a central figure in our ability to project force into a foreign setting, representing the willingness of our nation to spend its blood and treasure in away games in order to protect our country and our way of life. I'm proud to say I was aboard Tripoli for her last deployment in 1994 with 15th Marine Expeditionary Unit. We did everything from humanitarian assistance into Africa to crisis response off the coast of Somalia And finally, we put our infantry battalion into a place called Mutla Ridge in Kuwait, where they would prevent or die in place preventing a second invasion of Kuwait by a guy named Hussein. So, after a 23-year gap in the line of warships bearing the name Tripoli, Marines the world over are celebrating today, and especially in the months ahead, as we complete this ship and once again embark Marine forces aboard a USS Tripoli to serve as the centerpiece of our expeditionary and amphibious warfare capability. Wherever Tripoli shows our flag, she will be seen as a solid symbol of United States strength and United States resolve. And when she's fully loaded with elements of a Marine Air Ground Task Force, look out, because in the spirit of Presley O'Bannon, she is going to, as we say, kick ass and take names. Our big deck amphibs, this LHA class amphibious assault ship, serve as the flagship of our amphibious ready group Marine expeditionary units as they regularly deploy forward. And then we scale up to strike group expeditionary brigade level for contingency response and major combat operations, including forcible entry into contested domains and onto hostile shores. Ships like this ensure that the United States can go where it wants, when it wants, and no one can stop us. That's awesome. I assure you that whether her mission is one of deterrence, diplomacy, humanitarian assistance, or major combat, wherever she sails, Tripoli will command awe and admiration from some, caution and circumspection from others, and respect from all. This great ship is a wise investment for our Navy and for our nation. She is a critical part of the Navy the nation needs, and the superb work done here to build her right will bless us for decades to come as she takes the American flag, the will of the American people, and most importantly, the best of our country's young people, our sailors and Marines, into harm's way in every climb and place to the shores of Tripoli and beyond. On behalf of the Commandant of the Marine Corps and Marines everywhere, I congratulate all who helped build her, all who man her. We eagerly look forward to the great and wonderful things that lie ahead for this amphibious warship. Thank you, Semper Fidelis.
Thank you, General. Please welcome Vice Admiral Ted Carter, 62nd Superintendent of the United States Naval Academy.
Well, good morning, Congressman Palazzo, Secretary Mabus, Captain Myers, Command Master Chief Pierce, Mr. D, and most especially Mrs. Lynn Mabus, our sponsor today. Welcome each and every one of you, the crew of the future LHA 7. It is such an honor to be here and represent our 31st Chief of Naval Operations, Admiral John Richardson, to say a couple words about this momentous day. You've heard so much already spoken about with the history of how we came to honor the city of Tripoli, a name that actually means 3 cities. Often forgotten as we think about where we've been in the past and where we're going with LHA 7 is what we have done to honor Tripoli. As we talked about that first battle that happened in 1805, it's often forgotten that Commodore David Porter, actually who fought in those Barbary Wars, put together the money with those who had served and created a monument that was built in Livorno, Italy, and delivered by the USS Constitution in 1806, transported across the Atlantic Ocean, delivered to Newport, Rhode Island, was a monument to the Tripoli. That monument is the oldest military monument in the United States of America. It has been in the Washington Navy Yard since 1806 to 1836. The British tried to burn it down in the battles of 1812, and it survived. It moved to the U.S. Capitol lawn from 1836 to 1860. And from there, as your superintendent of the United States Naval Academy, it's been on the grounds of the U.S. Naval Academy since 1860. It honors the men who fought and died in those Tripoli wars. Names like Decatur, Israel, Caldwell, Summers, Wadsworth, and Dorsey. And it's refurbished in glorious condition. And it sits behind Preble Hall, the Naval Academy Museum, as it should. And as I reflect on the third ship in the line, the symmetry of the three cities and the third ship to be named Tripoli, it's not lost on me of the World War II veterans that are here, some of whom may have a connection to CVE 64 USS Tripoli, an escort carrier. And I am so warmed by the former crew members of LPH-10 that are here, an amazing ship that served 30 years, built here, christened, just as we're experiencing here today on 31 July 1965, and served 30 years till she was decommissioned on 15 September 1995. I could tell so many stories about LPH-10 because although I never served on her, I served at sea alongside her. From events in 1974, just 9 years after she was christened, the first helicopter carrier to put 8 Harriers on board. What a fitting beginning to the thinking of a non-well-deck amphibious assault ship that can carry as many as 20 F-35s and become one of the most powerful aircraft carriers that is on the earth today. But of all the sea stories that I could recount from the crew of LPH-10, one sticks out in my memory because I was there just months before it happened. At 04:36 in the morning, that's 04:36 in the morning on 18 February of 1991, and doing minesweeper operations in the Persian Gulf, USS Tripoli was hit by an Iraqi mine. A hole the size of 18 by 20 feet ripped into her hull. She was at risk of not only sinking, but losing the crew. They fought for 20 hours in damage control. Not only saved the ship, but the first time in Navy history, dating back to the Civil War, she went right back into operations. She served 7 days straight on the line, doing minesweep clearing. And then she went in for repairs into Bahrain and stayed on the line for 4 more months later, an 8-month deployment after having a hole ripped into her hull. This is the fighting spirit, the legacy from that crew, LPH-10, that is now going to go through the spirit and the grace of the ship's sponsor, Mrs. Lynn Mabus, to get this crew on their start. To the 11,000 shipyard workers that are here at Ingalls Shipyard, congratulations, this is truly your day. You represent the best of American engineering and spirit. To the crew of LHA 7, congratulations, 35 or so of you here. Captain Kevin Myers, from our Chief of Naval Operations, you are about to take on an immense responsibility. Your job is to set the personality of the legacy of USS Tripoli. We, the sailors, the men of the United States Navy, look forward to what you will do. We wish you fair winds and following seas. May God bless the future crew of USS Tripoli LHA 7. Let us remember that there are sailors and Marines standing the watch all over the globe today so that we may enjoy the freedoms that we have here today. God bless our United States Navy and Marine Corps, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you, Admiral. And now, please welcome our keynote speaker for today, Mr. Thomas D., performing the duties of the Undersecretary of the Navy.
Thank you, Jim. It's great to be down here in Mississippi, far away from Washington. and down here where real work is done, as you can see all around you as you look around this shipyard. And as an added incentive, you very kindly did not schedule any hurricane warnings this week, and thank you for that. Secretary Mabus, Mrs. Goodwin, Congressman Palazzo, Mayor Maxwell, distinguished guests from the Navy and the Marine Corps, from industry, from this critical naval port and vibrant Gulf Coast community, and to the former members of Pre-Commissioning Unit Tripoli, and to the members of the Pre-Commissioning Unit Tripoli, and to the former crew members of the earlier amphibious assault ship LPH-10. I am honored to be here representing the Secretary of the Navy as we celebrate the second of our America-class amphibious assault ships. The first amphibious assault ship in this class, USS America, was built right here in this yard, and it was commissioned 3 years ago in San Francisco, and it's already proving its worth on her first deployment to the Western Pacific and the Indian Ocean. The Secretary of the Navy at the time, Ray Mabus, was the featured speaker at that commissioning ceremony. Former Governor of Mississippi, former ambassador, and our 75th Secretary of the Navy. Sir, it's a great honor to have you here with us today. Not only did you work tirelessly as the Secretary of the Navy to ensure a robust shipbuilding program and our Navy's future relevance, as Governor, you also sowed the seeds of this exceptional workforce through your education initiatives that have produced the talented artisans and engineers whose product we see before us today. Thank you, sir, for your presence, and more importantly, for your service to this nation and your leadership spanning many, many decades. Mayor Maxwell, Pascagoula has a long, proud, and skilled heritage of building and maintaining our Navy, which the citizens of your fine city maintain to this day. Thank you for your support of our Navy and of this critical national defense shipbuilding industry. Mr. Kuchis, I had the opportunity yesterday to tour this shipyard and meet some of your employees. And as I gaze this morning upon this marvel of naval engineering and reflect on the contributions of the many, many United States ships already produced and delivered by your shipyard, I congratulate you, your employees, your many suppliers, and the entire U.S. shipbuilding industrial base for the world-class craftsmanship and engineering expertise that has resulted in an impressively productive shipyard across multiple diverse product lines. And I also salute you and the entire Gulf Coast community for fostering this critical industry within America. And what could be more motivating to the nation's aspiring naval architects, engineers, logisticians, technicians, and management students than an opportunity to contribute to such a powerful product of American ingenuity and engineering. Thank you and your superb team of shipbuilders, in partnership with our acquisition team led by Admiral Galinas and our program manager, Mr. Tom Rivers, and our Gulf Coast supervisor of shipbuilding, Captain Brian Lawrence, for a job well done. But USS Tripoli is more than an instance of superb shipbuilding. Once manned with our finest sailors and Marines and commissioned as a United States ship, an amphibious assault ship, USS Tripoli will become an expeditionary instrument of global American power and American compassion. It will carry the spirit of the American people across the globe, a spirit embodied by our distinguished sponsor, Mrs. Lynn Mabus. Now, in the coming weeks, both the U.S. Navy and the U.S. Marine Corps will be celebrating their 242nd birthdays. And the proximity of their birthdays is not a coincidence. 242 years ago, the Continental Congress approved the outfitting of the first two vessels of the fledgling Continental Navy. But the Continental Congress had forgotten something very important. You see, naval warfare back then wasn't about stealth and Aegis weapon systems and Link 16. Back then, naval warfare was much less sterile. And it wasn't just about the ship. In fact, naval warfare was downright ugly. Men would man the fighting tops of the highest masts and rain musket fire down upon the decks of the opposing ship. When close enough, those men would board and continue the fight with their swords,
and with their hands. You see, those ships were not much use without these men, these fighters, these extraordinarily tenacious and fearsome warriors who the Germans dubbed devil dogs at the Belleau Woods in World War I. What was missing from the fledgling naval force was the Corps of Marines. Archibald Henderson, our 5th Commandant, made the linkage so well when he declared that the United States Marine Corps is the fighting arm of the United States Navy. And so on 10 November 1775, the Continental Congress authorized the raising of 2 battalions of Marines to provide the fighting capability for the Navy. And as Captain Samuel Nichols led the first amphibious landing at Nassau in the Bahamas just 5 months later, he was proving the Marine Corps' worth as an expeditionary fighting force that would secure forward operating bases and protect American interests. The Navy and the Marine Corps, by their very nature and expeditionary culture, are infinitely agile and adaptable. When the Barbary pirates captured the USS Philadelphia in 1805, it was the Marines, led by Lieutenant Presley O'Bannon, who marched those 500 miles across the desert from Egypt to Tripoli harbor to free the captives. The Battle of Derna, supported from the sea by Isaac Hull, demonstrated the expeditionary value of a strong Navy and a strong Marine Corps, and resulted in the town's capture and the freeing of the hostages. This battle is memorialized in the famous line from the Marine Corps hymn, "To the shores of Tripoli." And to all in the audience, to the many, many stakeholders who could not be here today, and to all of our sailors and Marines and our veterans around the world, thank you for your partnership, your support of our Navy and Marine Corps. I am very proud to call you all shipmates. Godspeed, USS Tripoli, and thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, now it's time to hear from our sponsor. Would everybody please give a warm Mississippi welcome to Tripoli sponsor, Ms. Lynn Mavis.
I had to reach into my little bag and get my lucky coin that was given to me just before we walked onto the podium by Admiral Carter, and he said it's for good luck. And I'm pretty impressed right now because I think he just passed his oral exams and able to give me that speech with no paper in front of him. So I think that's pretty good luck right there. So I'll put this right here while I give my speech, which is in like a 48 font pink notebook. All right, so let me begin. First of all, good morning. It is such an honor to be here and have the privilege of being the sponsor of the USS Tripoli. Of course, none of this would be possible without a very special guest here who is here today. My hero, my husband, and your longest serving Secretary of the Navy since World War I, Ray Mavis. I know he's been introduced a lot and he's been thanked a lot for being here in the former speeches that were given, but I just wanted to say that if you're not familiar with him, he was also your governor of this beautiful state. So he is really part of all that we do and what has brought us all here today. So, as it is the Secretary of the Navy who extends the invitation to the sponsor to become a sponsor of a ship, Mr. Secretary, it is with great joy, pride, and pleasure that I accept your invitation to sponsor this new ship, the USS Tripoli. Thank you very much. Okay, so I know the question on everybody's mind is, what is a sponsor? What does a sponsor do? The sponsor plays a very important role in the life of a ship. She is invited by the Secretary of the Navy to accept this honorable role. She is there from the first steps of the laying of the keel to the moment when the ship leaves the safety of the land to the water where she will play her role in defending the United States of America. But there is so much more to being a sponsor than the ceremonial duties. And the extra responsibilities are what make this role so special. Being a ship sponsor is an opportunity to create and nurture a lifelong relationship with the crew of the ship. And it's a relationship that will last for as long as the ship is in service. So I'm going to get to know sailors and crewmen who may not even been born yet, as long as I can stay with this ship, which is usually about 40 or 50 years. So I'm good. I've only just reached my 50th birthday. Just aside, a little anecdote. The oldest daughter in our family, Elizabeth, once said she finally understood what it meant to Ray being a public servant when strangers would walk up to him every day and say, "I met you once when you were governor," or "I met you once when you were Secretary of the Navy." It's these little moments of interaction, these little threads that even in the briefest contact weave together this greater fabric of our humanity. Even the small moments like this contribute the human experience and the relationship that I am so looking forward to having with the crew of the USS Tripoli. I have been so fortunate this weekend to meet the people who are bringing this ship to life, and learn their stories about what connects them to this ship and what makes it meaningful to them. Captain Kevin Myers, our prospective CO, our commanding officer of the Tripoli, shared some stories of the two former predecessors of this Tripoli as he placed a piece of steel from the Tripoli LPH-10 circa 1991 and an envelope mailed from the Tripoli CVE-64 circa 1943 into the ceremonial mast box. Mr. Tom Rivers, who is here with us today, shared a sorrowful tribute in memory of his friend and colleague, Michael Arnold, whose family is here with us today, who inspired the design of this class of amphibious assault ship and who tragically lost his life in the 2013 shooting at the Navy Yard in Washington, nearly 4 years ago to this day. And there are so many more beautiful stories and tributes that are now beginning to lay the foundations for what will become the collective memory, the history, the stories we would tell 100 years from now about the Tripoli LHA-7. I can't even stop. I'll have to come to a stopping point at this moment for all the stories because we'd be here all day. So I just want to appreciate everyone who has this weekend shared their stories and their experiences and their hopes for what the Tripoli will mean to them and to the United States. It is with great humility and a lot of relief that I say, I'm so glad I don't have to do this alone. This is the moment when I'd like to give thanks to everyone here today. Your presence here comforts and reassures me that we are all one nation of individuals working together for for a common cause, a common goal, a common love. I'd like to thank the shipbuilders who, through what must be supernatural abilities, have built something that goes beyond anything nature seems possible of being able to create. This ship was built by the hands and the women and men of Huntington Ingalls. But to look at it, it looks as if it were built by the hands of the gods. It's incredible. I'd like to thank my family and friends who have joined me here today. Their presence here defines the meaning of a lifelong relationship and the unbreakable bond that is possible through love, caring, and just being present. So many of you have traveled a long way to come here. Lisa came from California. And for her, she can see a future for her son, who is a first-year plebe at the Naval Academy in Annapolis. Lynn came here from Colorado, where she has built her family, a successful business, made that her new state. But she was actually born here in Pascagoula, Mississippi, at Singing River Hospital. We're all connected. No matter how far we go, we always come home. My uncle and aunt have traveled from Louisiana, and I'm sure reminded of their son who served in the U.S. Navy, but cannot be here today. My mother, who grew up in Pascagoula, and is part of the Ingalls family, where her father worked his entire career. It cannot be enough for her to feel a certain joy and pride that that moment where she first came here has evolved into the moment where we're all here today. Again, I could go on for hours because there are so many people, so many of you here today, which touches my soul. And we will all forever have this day as an unbreakable link in the memories, the shared memories of our lives. I'd like to thank the team at Huntington Ingalls who have been working on this for a very long time to make it happen. Years, as a matter of fact. I'll just mention first names because they've all been introduced before, and I'm sure that their reputation goes way before their names because of all the great work they do. Brian, Debbie, Jim, Angel, Carrie, Ella, our flower girl, who represents all the potential of the young people who will be the future of Huntington Ingalls, the United States, and hopefully the United States Navy, Marine Corps, or military. Today is special for me as the sponsor because it marks the beginning of a beautiful friendship. I can't wait to meet the sailors and Marines who will board this ship that is now towering above me as in the coming years it enters the fleet. So what does a christening mean to a ship? The christening is a milestone in the life of a ship. Every milestone has a marker. Today will be the momentous milestone marker in the life of this ship. Today, it will formally receive its name and be doused with champagne, provided I break it, for good luck and safe travels. Historically, other beverages have been used: whiskey, Madeira, think Prohibition era, apple cider. Champagne is my favorite choice because it brings to mind power and elegance. What better words could describe this beautiful ship we are standing behind right now? The giving and receiving of a name is an event of major importance. The act of naming is the bestowal of a soul on the one who receives that name. The person or thing that receives that name thereby receives an identity and a place within society. This ship will be the third in line to bear the name Tripoli and take her place within the society of the U.S. Navy. I understand we have some former crew members here today from the USS Tripoli LPH-10. Welcome to the christening ceremony of your namesake, and thank you so much for being here. I hope the ship will carry on the honor, courage, and commitment you dedicated to your country while serving on board your Tripoli. The name Tripoli also has a very special significance in military history and American history. I don't come from a military family. Despite that, the name Tripoli is indelibly etched in my psyche. I can't say exactly how I know all the words to the Marine Corps hymn. Maybe it was a lot of episodes of Gomer Pyle USMC. But they're there. I know every word to the hymn. And when I think to the shores of Tripoli, I can't help but wonder if maybe everybody else in this room and in our nation also share that collective memory that bestows the mental, spiritual, and emotional link we all have to our courageous military who serve us. We all know it is because of a story that helps define our military might and the resilience of our country after fighting the War of Independence. It is our nation's story. Just a little bit of history, and I know that sometimes history class is boring. Just going to mention, though, the first battle of Dern at Tripoli was against the Barbary pirates. The Barbary pirates were the bullies of the sea, keeping our new country from living to its fullest potential as an independent nation. By blocking trade and plundering American merchant ships, our country's first citizens were unable to pursue a free trade society that would grant us a place on the world stage economically and give us the opportunity to build a great nation from scratch. While some of the world's most powerful nations were cowering under the despotic tactics of the Barbary pirates, what did a fledgling nation of young, scrappy, good men do? They took on the Leviathan of the seas and slayed that beast. This love of country and commitment to freedom has seen us through threats, acts of aggression, and wars, and it's the men and women of our military we can thank for the freedom we have to be here today. Traditionally, ships are referred to as a she, which means she has a feminine side and she has a strong side, like all women do. I think this is her greatest advantage. She is made of 45,000 tons of steel, sweat, and she will carry on her back and in her belly aircraft, Nighthawk, place where our sailors and Marines at the end of 4 hours and guide them spiritually and comfort them in times of need. Nurses to stay by their bedside in times of sickness. And they'll have a sponsor who will always have them in her heart and mind as they go about their perilous journey. So before I would also like she teaches me every day the qualities it takes to be a leader, a caregiver, a mother, a sister, an aunt, a wife, a daughter. She is literally this sponsor's sponsor and has been from the day I was born. So without further ado, let's go christen this ship. Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Mavis. For each christening, we randomly select a young lady to be the flower girl for our ceremony. The flower girl for the Tripoli is the daughter of Mike and Marcy Kennedy. Mike is a sheet metal foreman here at Ingalls. Please welcome our flower girl, Miss Ella Ransley Kennedy. Now it's time to christen LHA 7. Secretary and Mrs. Mavis, Mr. Cusius, Congressman Palazzo, Mr. D, and Captain Myers will now make their way to the platform for the event.
right here.
Right here, and then
So make sure I don't run the
Yes, sir.
block the
Yes, sir.
congressman.
can you come up a little bit, and then out. If you want him up, come up a little bit. Just right there. Is that good? Okay.
So when you, the camera's ready. Okay, so read the words and he'll give you the countdown to swing.
Okay. In the name of the United States of America, I christen thee Tripoli. May God bless this ship and all who sail in her. You ready?
Well, no, you get in position and he'll give you the countdown.
Oh,
So
okay.
put your feet where you want to go, where you want to hit.
Okay.
Remember, line the bottle up to it first,
Okay.
like where you want to hit, and then move your feet